Welcome to the Music Business Insights Podcast. I'm your host, Orlando Alvarez, and if you're desperate to break into the music business and want to hear tips and advices from insiders, this podcast is for you. You'll be able to discover from the professionals themselves what it takes to do what they do and where to start if you're a beginner. Are you ready? Let's go. On today's podcast, we have a very, very special guest. His name is Chris Coyne. He's a 2 times Emmy nominee, foley recordist, mixer, and professional singer. And it's my absolute pleasure starting this podcast actually with this interview. And I know you're going to love it. This is going to be part 1. In part 2 is going to be dropping next week. I don't want you to miss that. And let's get this started. Hey, Chris.
What's up, dude?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. How you doing, man?
Really good, really good. Hey, welcome. And a pleasure to have you with us.
It's such a pleasure to be here, man. It really is. Like we were saying before we officially started recording, this is my first LinkedIn contact that I've had with anyone. So it's like exciting because I mean you followed through with me, and then I followed through with you. And we owe it all to my wife because she reminded me that I had this because I was doing other stuff, and she's like, "Don't you have a thing at 5?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I do." So yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. It really is.
Really nice. And this is really cool for many reasons because I also started dabbling into marketing and social media and all this stuff because as musicians, we just need to learn a little bit more where we move ourselves, the medium and what we can use to just connect with other people and just to do fun stuff like this and just, create and develop relationships. And what I'm discovering as well is that, like I talked to you a little bit before, it's like LinkedIn is really, really cool for this purpose because people go in with a business mindset, and it's different. It's more, it feels more professional. I mean, I just connected with you, and
we didn't know each other at all, and you, I think, came up on like you might want to connect with this person, and maybe we had like 3 connections in common or something like that. And I just got on LinkedIn. I just started trying to expand out myself, because of the pandemic and everything, and just make sure that I have all my ducks in a row in case, I need them.
Yeah, of course.
So I started just kind of using LinkedIn a little bit more to link up with people. And now I'm talking to you. So it's really cool.
It's really nice. So I'm just going to start with the questions because I know people want to know more about you, of course. What was your childhood like?
I'll give you my therapist's phone number. No, I'm just kidding. He knows everything. So no, my childhood, well, my parents are divorced, and my childhood was like this. You know what I mean? Like it was like good and then bad and then good and then bad. And, it got to the point where it was like each day you wouldn't really know. I used to always say, like, I come home from school and I would not know who was going to be on the other side of that door. Like, emotionally speaking. So there's that. Also, my father was a professional musician. And then he got into the record business. So he got into radio. So he worked for a radio station. So that was like super cool when you're a kid. And my dad worked for like the rock and roll radio station in Boston, Mass. Anyone who hears this who's from Boston might remember WCOZ. And their tagline was literally, and this is in the 70s, because I'm a little older than I look, but it was WCOZ 94 and a half kick-ass rock and roll.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was what they would say on air. They'd be like, WCOZ, kick-ass rock and roll. Da 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 da. Like, it was unbelievable that they would never, like, I don't know if they let you do that now on the radio. So my dad was a musician. My brother Steve played the guitar and still plays the guitar. He's now a music teacher. He is an incredible guitar player. My brother Tim is not involved in music now, but he did a lot of musical theater. He's a great singer, great actor. And I started out playing the drums, was my first love. I've got a Roland kit sitting right here still, along with my guitar that my brother, and I have another guitar hanging here that my brother taught me how to play. And
nice.
So it was a musical childhood, and also filled with a little bit of drama, mixed in, like so many other people. I'm not, that's what a lot of musicians will and performers and people in this industry, I think, share. I was diagnosed with ADD as well, and that's like a big thing for me now, because I'm also writing some children's books,
awesome,
and that address that diagnosis. And when it's given to a child at that age, when you're about 10, it can be devastating, and it can be life altering, where you think, I'm not enough because I have an affliction that is called ADD, attention, or ADHD or whatever. And that acronym is so brutal, I think, for kids to deal with, because they really do believe that they have a deficit. And in my experience and in my research is that it's not a deficit. It's an abundance of creativity and an ability to think outside the box on a tangent that someone else would never have thought of, but still be able to find your way back. And I think that's is a part of songwriting too, because I have written songs for feature films and things like that, and just songs throughout my life, that I think that's what songwriting kind of is like this ability to tangent out, but still hold strong to what the song is. Kind of like a bridge, right? Like,
yes,
like a bridge is where you go away, right? For a minute, but you're still tethered. Yeah. And then when you come back to the chorus from that tethered bridge, it just makes the chorus all the more powerful, right? I mean, that's just basic songwriting. And I know a lot of musicians who are incredible. They just can't write a song, dude. I'm sure some musicians that are insane, technical. That's just not how their brain works.
Exactly.
And so I see it now after many years, as it's a challenge.
Generally, when people talk about that, it's like this kind of negative connotation. And for some reason, I mean, we managed to just push through and just to use it to, I mean, you managed to use it to your advantage. So, and that's remarkable. And that's what I think this is super interesting, because I know many people would want to hear this, because the whole thing behind it's kind of this smoke curtain.
There's a stigma.
Exactly.
Basically what it is an intellectual, stigma. It's a diagnosis, and it's an incorrect one. Okay. And it basically has to do with something called executive function. So if, like, you think of your brain in two halves, and then they have the Abdullah oblongata, I think is what it's called. And it connects both sides of your brain. And there's a little executive function, like there's a dude in there who's like, okay, what's important right now? And that's the only thing that ADD kids are missing. What's the most important thing for me to be focused on right now? Because there are a million things going through my head right now that I think are super important. right?
Exactly.
So like to me, it is ultra important where that teacher, you know, got that scarf she has on because it's like so cool. I love that scarf, that color, you know. And so I'm like sitting there focused on this scarf because this little guy did said, hey, dude, you will find out after class, but right now, focus on your geometry or whatever you happen to be doing, you know.
Exactly. But yeah,
So,
there's so many misconceptions about that, and I
there
mean,
is.
it's
Like
great
I'm
that
not paying attention, or like I'm sort of drifting off all the time, and like all those misconceptions are not true. And you know, the thing about it as well is you get hyper focus. There's a flip side to it that a lot of people that they're starting to really discover now is that you can switch gears into this insane hyper focus on something, and that can be bad too. You can hyper focus on negativity. You know, like adults with ADD, there's a higher suicide rate, there's a higher divorce rate. You know, that people can get very focused on the wrong thing too. So I mean, it's really serious. That's why I'm so passionate about it, because I like to talk about it. And if I have any modicum of success, you know, there's so many examples of people out there that are technically ADD that are the most successful people in the world.
You already responded. Basically, the second question was, you know, how did you start in music? And obviously, with family in music already, you find that it's something that you really, really wanted to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I said, my dad worked for a radio station in the 70s and 80s when they used to play vinyl on air. So they had a policy at his radio station where they played 3 plays and then the vinyl's got to go because they couldn't afford to have a skip. It was like really bad. So we had thousands of records that my dad would just take from work. So we had everything from Sgt. Pepper's to, you know, Foreigner, Michael Jackson. We just had so many different, such an eclectic collection of records in our house that we could just listen to whenever we wanted to. And it was kind of insane in that way. And then we had like a playroom, and that's where, you know, I got my first drum set and my brother had his guitar set up. And so music was like sort of like definitely not frowned upon or looked down upon or anything. It was just something that we just all just did very naturally, you know,
Awesome.
and something my dad did. So it made it kind of like a no-brainer, you know, for us.
On my part, it was kind of a bet between this is really funny, between my grandma and my mom and my dad. So here's the thing: I love martial arts. I never got into it, but my dad knew it, and he's a big fan as well. But you know, I also like music. So back in Cuba, he wanted to. I mean, he literally took me to judo school, and the teacher. I was smaller than the other kids in age, and the teacher was like, no, don't bring him here. He's too young. And my dad is like, hey, you need to see this kid. You need to. And when he finally, took me to judo school, the teacher said like, okay, no, bring it tomorrow, because I was big for my age. So and then what happened was like my mom and grandma heard about that, and then they made a plan, and they like, okay, we're gonna do this. If we enroll him in music school, and he passes all the tests and all that, he goes to music school. If he fails, then you take him to judo. Guess what happened?
Wow, that's crazy.
And I ended up, graduating like 9 years after music percussion teacher and all that. And yeah, I mean, I found myself coming here to the States, and it's has been a blast because I have to learn everything again. including polishing my English, which is not by any means by any means perfect. But
It's
I've
very,
been
very good though. How long have you been here?
about 7 years.
Okay.
Tell me something. What was the first paid job that you had in music?
Oh, paid job.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I would have to be. God, it is so hard to get paid in music.
I know, right?
Like when you're young. I mean, I'm trying to think of like live shows.
But that moment, that moment in music where you made your first buck doing music, it's
that would probably be then when I did a musical. I did a tour of a musical called Hair. I don't know if you ever heard of Hair.
Not sure if I'm
It's
familiar.
got let the sun shine, let the sun shine in, the sun shining.
I think
that's from Hair. And
awesome.
This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. The age of Aquarius.
Man. Okay.
Those are songs from that musical. They kind of like.
That's awesome.
Came out in the 60s.
How old were you?
And so I was in my 20s, honestly. And that was like, my first real paying. That was like, like I got the lead in that show. Because I have like a very eclectic life too. Like I've done a lot of different things. But at that time, I was playing in a rock band. So I was about 26. I'd say when I really was like, okay, so now I'm getting paid to do this. Exclusively because I went on tour. So so now I don't have any other job, and so that's how I make my living, is doing theater, singing. Awesome. And honestly, like there could be little things here and there, but that's like the first real, you know what I mean? Like I don't count $17 from a show because it's just like I don't even remember, you know what I mean? Usually we end up owing the club money. Because they have that pay to play system here in the States where you need to sell at least 25 tickets. And that sounds easy until you try to sell 25 tickets.
Exactly, yeah.
You realize you only have 18 friends or whatever, And you're like, dude, we got to come up with the money for these pre-sales. So I never made money playing rock and roll. And then musical theater. And then I worked in Vegas. I did 12 shows a week for 6 years in Las Vegas.
Huh, awesome. That's singing.
2 shows a night, 6 nights a week. Yep. That was singing. Yeah. So I started out playing the drums, but then I quickly moved into singing, and I became a professional singer. And that's what I did for a long time. So that was my first, and then my last paying gig. I think I got a little tiny check from ASCAP for a song I had in a movie. I'm not sure if it was what movie, but I think it was called By God's Grace. And I wrote the theme song because I was actually working on the film. I had my own company at the time, and we did all the post audio. So we did all the sound effects, background, dialogue, ADR, everything. We mixed it, we printed it to spec and gave it to them. And they were new. They didn't really know what they were. They were new to filmmaking, and it was like a Christmas movie called By God's Grace. And then the credits rolled, and it was just total silence. And I was like, they don't have there's no song for the credits.
Huh.
So this is kind of crazy. I'll say it as fast as I can, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to write a song. I want to see if anything good can come out of this. So I started writing it. I'm like, ooh, when you get the chorus and you're like, oh, it's pretty good, dude. And then I was
do I want to give it to them already?
Yeah, right. I'm like, well, what am I going to do here? So I was like, you know what? I was actually I had gone to school for Pro Tools. And so I was in this little like 18-month program. So I had access to a pretty incredible studio with a bunch of great outboard gear and all this stuff. So I went in and just recorded the guitar part and the vocal part by myself. Then I asked anyone, how am I going to put the drums on? You know, and this guy in my class was like, I know this dude who plays finger drums for like Prince and like and he lives in Germany and he's insane, dude.
Oh, hold on. What?
Yeah, he like plays like
no kidding.
Yeah, and he's like an incredible finger drummer. And I was like, okay. He's like, so just kind of send him the song and then write out what you want here. And so I'd be like, okay, so this is just basic 4 on the floor. And I'm like, then we get the chorus, and then I'm like, do a little build. I kind of talked him through it. He sent it back, dude. It was so good. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Gave it to another friend. He put the bass on it, a guy from school, and then we mixed it at my studio. And then I just tagged it on the end of the movie. I didn't even tell the producers or the director or anybody. So when we gave him like the cut, it was risky, but I was like, yeah, this is really good. What's the worst thing that could happen? Like, how dare you, you know, spend 90 hours writing and producing the song. So anyway, so I gave it to them, and they were like in tears when they heard the song, because it was called By God's Grace. And, you know, when people make movies, it's like their baby, and to know that someone cared that much and it was moving to them. So it ended up in the movie. But yeah, so for music, that's the latest thing.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So one tip that you will give like the youngest you starting music, now that you know all you know.
Okay. Be prolific. Don't be so precious with everything. It doesn't have to be perfect, but keep writing. Keep going. Make it part of your daily routine. That's what a professional does. You have to be prolific in anything you do. You can't have 5 songs and they're all like really good to you, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, I know, but really the strongest of the 5 is really this one. But what you need to have is 50 songs, you know, and then you can start to see what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And it's the only way to grow is to be prolific. And I would tell myself that. I would say, don't be so precious with all your shit. It's not that good. Not. Just keep going. Just keep writing. Don't think you got a great song. I think you got enough for an album, or now we got enough for an EP. You need to have more. And I would also tell myself, listen to that little voice that you ignore every day that's telling you who you are as a musician. You know, don't think, oh, you know, country is still selling like units, so I should maybe like write some country songs because it seems like that's what's still selling. And so I'll kind of put a little twang on and be a country artist. Or, you know, when I first started, I was like a heavy metal singer, and then I was like musical theater, and then I was country, and then I did this kind of gospel album. And, you know, through it took me forever, and I still am not 100% sure who that person is authentically. Who is my voice? And I think it's the biggest challenge for any artist, whether you're an actor or a singer or a musician, is that voice. You do know, you're just not listening because you're so focused on what you think this business is about and what you think you need to get done, to get the money, to be relevant, to be cutting edge and stay, you know, relevant and where you're supposed to be, where you think you're supposed to be. And the reality is you're really supposed to just be you and be you, a lot of you, find out who you are and be that guy prolifically, and you will strengthen that voice that you could barely hear will become your identity, and you'll be fulfilled. It's the only way to be fulfilled as an artist is to listen to the voice. You know the voice I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, the one you ignore for years and years and years. That one, that guy.
That's true.
You know, because you can get pulled away from that so easily by, especially bandmates. It's the people that are closest to you that are most scared of letting you listen to your authentic self, because they're gonna lose you. Maybe.
So just do, and not only that, it's like, do what makes you happy. People want to reach for the, $1 million. They want to reach for 1,000,000 followers, 1,000,000 this, 1,000,000 that. In reality, what you need to do is be happy with what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I mean, that in of itself, it's what you gave is just an amazing advice, because when you started out in music, you're pretty much lost. And you don't know where to go, and you don't know who to listen to, and then you saying that that's just confirmation that just need to do, and just move forward, because that's the only way.
And you'll grow, and you'll look back on stuff, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? But you know what you'll also do is you'll listen back at something that's 20 years old, or something when you were a kid, and be like, holy, that's actually good. I was really into that at that point. Whether it's like I was really into speed, or I was really into singing like really high all the time, or you're like, wow, man, that was great. Or sometimes you might listen back and just be like, what
so what it gets me in that way, it's my graduation back in Cuba. I play xylophone. I play it's a violin piece adapted to xylophone.
Okay, that sounds awesome.
The school principal was like, who's the crazy guy who's gonna play that xylophone? And
people underestimate the xylophone, dude. It is a beautiful instrument.
Yeah. And I was studying so much that, that's the only video that I kind of could save. I have that one in YouTube, and every time I watch it, my heart, it's like pumping. It's like I'm there. And man, if I miss a note, it's gonna be doom.
It's an intense moment.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I did it every night for 6 years, and twice a night.
It's that rush, right? It's that adrenaline that it's awesome.
It's crazy, but you can get caught up in something. You can get for a singer, you can get caught up in, am I going to forget the lyric? Okay, because that's kind of like our worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Is to go. We call it going up on a lyric. Like, you just all of a sudden you're like, wait, what? Where am I? And you do. Okay, so it's not a question of, are you going to forget a lyric at some point? It's just when. And then when it happens, although it's awful, and you sweat like 400 gallons of sweat within a tenth of a second, it's not that bad. You just make shit up until you figure it out again, and then you get on track, and hopefully you get off stage. And the worst part is the cast. They just are relentlessly giving you a hard time about it. But like, sometimes your worst case scenario is not as bad as you think, and that's what I mean about being prolific, and when you're writing, being free to make mistakes. Whenever I'm writing, I have to be alone, because it's just so embarrassing to really let loose. If I'm writing a vocal melody and I'm trying stuff out and it's just terrible. 90% of the stuff that you first think is, you're just like, this is so bad, that you just laugh. But then from that, something can click, but you have to be open like that. And you have to be that way as a performer too, I believe. You have to be open to making a mistake, or you will never get to the next level of performance because you're scared.
Yeah.
When you operate in fear, you don't get anywhere artistically. You just don't. You think you do, but you don't. You're like, if you're just trying to get through the show without making a mistake, you're wasting your time and you're not inspiring anybody. I've seen singers forget lyrics. I'm sure you have too. It makes for a hell of a moment in the show. Depending on the show. I mean, musical theater is a little different because it's like, there's a shitload of people just got thrown off. And the whole thing's a nightmare. But just a show, there's like, guys, I just forgot the lyrics. It brings everybody that comes together for you, and like, let's pick it up from that second verse, or whatever.
It's crazy. I for sure forgotten lyrics, wrote all the songs, did all the music. I knew it all. It comes performance. And then, I forgot the lyrics. Everyone else was cool. And then I just forgot. And
everyone's like, how did you forget? You wrote it. And you're like,
exactly. It's like,
you can't explain it, dude.
Yeah.
I can't explain it. I can't explain it because I've had so much experience with this. I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. You forget the lyric because there's an emotion happening in you that has never happened before. You are living in the moment, and no matter how many times you rehearsed it, you never felt that before. And that's called growth. And that's what makes you forget, because you've attached your previous emotion to that lyric. And then now you've erased that emotion, has been filled in with a new one. And it all happens so quickly that the connectivity of this old emotion is gone, and it makes you forget. Right? And so it's because it's that muscle memory of your mind, and your emotional content is what helps you remember, right? So that's where the growth happens. Now, sometimes you can pull it off and you just remember at the last millisecond, right? But it's like when you're in a church and you're in that setting, and maybe, you had a thing, and that it just makes you forget because you are experiencing it differently now. And so kind of like, if you take away the choreography from someone who's used to singing a song and dancing to it, they will forget the lyrics because they have attached the lyric to their physicality. I see that all the time. When we used to try to promote shows, they'd stand there and sing. And I've seen just people like, I have no idea what I'm doing right now. Or they'll see them like kind of dancing because it's all attached, So that's been my research. Anyway.
That's the best explanation I've heard about that. That's awesome.
That's what I truly believe,
Chris,
and it's like,
what's the work of all what you've done so far, what you're most proud of?
Probably I ended up writing an EP, and there's a song on there called Move a Mountain that I wrote for my wife when I first met her. And, I didn't actually put it like pen to paper and like record it until 10 years later. And that's what I mean about being like prolific. Like, it would have been nice. Like, I wrote the chorus 10 years ago. And then after I wrote the song for that movie, the producer was like, I really want you. She kind of like commissioned me to write sort of like a Christian music. But I'm most proud of that song because I have 2 kids, and when they hear that song, they know that's the song Daddy wrote for Mommy, and they love that song. That's awesome. So for me, that's probably the thing I am the most proud of. Yeah,
it's legacy.
I mean, I wish I had like a number 1 hit or something like that, but at the end of the day, they don't care.
Mhm.
They just hear me singing that, and they hear like it comes up in the car, like on my playlist or something,
Mhm.
and they're like, "Daddy," and I sing to my son every night
That's
before
awesome.
I put him to sleep, and I sing the song "By God's Grace" to him. That song I wrote for the movie, and
Awesome.
and that was the first movie I ever worked on in a post production sound effects. Um, in that way. Like I had never done it before. Like I had just been a musician and I honestly didn't know if I could do it. I was
Mm.
like, put back into like another place where I was like, I gotta put the backgrounds in and I gotta do the foley for these footsteps. And I remember thinking like, how am I gonna be good at this? I don't have any idea. You know what I mean? Like, well, I guess we'll find out. And I just started doing it. So, I mean, there's a lot of special things that came from that very first film that I did. And I realized, oh, thank God. Like I was right. I knew I could do it and I did it. And so I listened to that voice too that said,
Mm.
dude, you're going to be good at this.
So
Don't worry.
that's the first time you started like in post production.
Yeah. And
Mm.
post production is very difficult
It's very
business.
unique. I'm intrigued because I know I've seen videos and recording all these things, and it's just epic. It's this world that I mean I'm baffled by it because it's so niche um and specific as well. Because I mean I bet there's a lot of specifications that you get that you need to you know you need to accomplish that just for a film. Or if you can talk more about that.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the key is, people don't understand that when people are making a movie, the on-set sound mixer, their job is to get the dialogue. The end. That's it.
This
Oh,
is okay. Just so this is breaking news. This is blowing my mind right now. So
yeah,
you're telling me that in the movie they
yeah.
just, I mean, what they do is just getting the vocal,
Gotta get
nothing
the
else.
dialogue is king. They gotta get the dialogue, especially if they got an A-list actor, for example, who's only there for a week.
Hmm.
They'll put 7 mics on this guy to make sure they cannot not have his dialogue, right? It's got to be clear. It can't be muffled underneath his jacket. The boom
Hmm.
operator can't be high up, with the going off access. He's got to be right there, and you
Hmm.
got to get that dialogue. And it's the only thing that's their only job is to get the dialogue. No footsteps, no backgrounds. In fact, any backgrounds would be detrimental to the dialogue. So if a truck
Hmm.
was going by, they would hold. If a plane is going over, they hold. They try to get it as quiet as they can. Even if they're supposed to be in a nightclub with the music cranking, or they're supposed to be, in an airport,
Man, that's
okay,
crazy.
or in a restaurant. Great
Huh.
example. All the extras in the background are just pantomiming. They're not actually fucking saying anything. We
Man.
put that in later, all of it, because we need to have control.
Hmm.
Dishes hitting, all that stuff. None of that's in production. None.
And I know for a fact that in a movie, sound, it's man, it's I
Sound
mean,
is most dude. Watch Star Wars without sound design. You're
oh
gonna look
man,
like a
yeah,
bunch of dudes in cardboard suits
that
walking
it's
around cheap sets. Okay.
that it's
If you don't
epic.
have that lightsaber
Hmm.
sound effect and you don't have James Earl Jones doing Darth Vader,
Hmm.
none of that stuff was done on set. James Earl Jones is not in that out costume. Do you
Hmm.
know what I mean? Like C3PO. I use Star Wars a lot because it's really, when they were making it, everyone was like, this is going to be the shittiest movie ever made.
Hmm.
But then the sound, the lasers, the lightsabers, obviously it's an epic, classic, epic tale,
Hmm.
right? So, and there's just great moments. But you, like, for example, you would never, any siren that you hear or in a TV show is
Hmm.
not from the set. There will not once would someone play a siren on the set.
hold on.
So, woo, police cars pull up, fire engines, all that's put in later.
So hold on. All the police cars, ambulances, all that, they just turn off the sound.
One of those that you've ever heard in your life from a movie was being played on the set.
Oh, man.
And if it was someone's job to take it out and then put in the good one.
That's crazy.
I always freak people out with that. I'm like, so like when a cop pulls up and you just hear them go like whoop, whoop, or whatever, when they kind of like say it's like the detectives, right? They come on the scene and you hear they do that police chirp. Yeah. They pull up, they got the lights on though. And that's my job, is I go like, oh, they probably gonna do a little chirpy chirp when they come up here, And I'm like, look at my library, I'm like, whoop, whoop, whoop. Yeah, okay, that's cool. That's cool. Or they're, oh, here they come. The police are coming. We have to build like that whole thing to bring reality into it, because without and like birds chirping, and if they're near a lake or a stream, I'll throw in, there's some water in the background that you're not even really aware of. But if they find like a body, like I don't know, it's like they found a body in the woods or something, you would need to have all that background fill to give some reality, so that it doesn't just look like a couple of actors walking through the woods. Because that's what it looks like when I get it. Like I'll get movies and I'll be like, I'm like, this is the worst movie I've ever worked on. And then by the time I'm done though, I'm like, this is good. Now this is a movie. Now it's a movie. Now we got the sound of the car chase, the screeching tires, the everything like that. Plus, if you get lucky, get a great score. Fights, body hits, body falls. I don't know why actors do this, but it's a nervous tick where they're talking and they're kind of like trying to think of their next line, and you'll see them they're talking, they kind of go, yeah. And I love to put a little shout if they're in a city, like, hey, you motherfucker, like way in the back. And then you just see the actor look and look back to give him something to look at. And it makes his performance better, because you think he's in the moment. And it's just like a lot of little things like that you might not even ever think of. But when you've got it in front of you, you're like, ooh, this will be fun if I can do that. It'll make it that much more real. But you never want the audience to know that you've done anything.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
That's epic.
Same with feet, dude. Like, none of those feet are production. I mean, occasionally I have a production track where it's in production. A lot of times actors, they'll talk and they'll hit the table on the line. And then you're stuck with it. Because they said it. If they had just gone, Mom, I love you, and then they hit their hand, I could Foley that hand.
Exactly.
But when they go, Mom, I love you, and they do it right on the line, I'm like, oh. So I go back and try to find another take where they didn't hit their hand. I will take I love you when I'm editing dialogue, and I will put the other to 2 takes together to get rid of the one with the hand. And then I will replace that hand with Foley so that we can control it in the mix. Maybe they don't want it to be that loud. Maybe they want it to be really loud, and I can control the surface. Maybe it was a wooden table, but it sounded like he was hitting concrete or something. So I can create a better world than the one they shot in. If that makes any sense. That's kind of my job as a sound designer or a Foley recordist. Like, it's very rare that we'll use the thing that, like guns. There's a rule, okay? And this drives me crazy. You'll notice this now. I'm going to ruin your life.
Okay. Okay.
You ever notice how when the dude's got the gun?
Just turn off the episode right now if you're listening.
Listen.
This is a secret.
You're going to be like, yeah, why is that? Okay,
Let's ruin people's life right now, okay?
I'm going to take you out, man. And then he moves the gun closer, and you hear gun sound. And then sometimes you'll hear the dude cock his gun 4 times in a scene.
Oh.
And because it's like it's lending to the drama, and there's a sort of an unwritten rule. Anytime there's gun movement on camera, you have to have some sort of Foley sound effect, gun movement. Because if the gun moves without any sort of clicking sound or any, it immediately reads like it's a prop. It doesn't have the weight, right? Because, you know, actors with a gun, man, they're just waving that. They're so excited they got a gun in a scene. They're waving it around. Like, I got to remember, everyone's like just a person. And I've been I'm lucky because I've been an actor. So I've done movies and I've been in that position. So I kind of know. That's why I always put a sound for them when they look off to the side, when they don't remember their lines, and then they look back. I try to help them out. I also help them out when I edit dialogue with breathing. They do a lot of breaths because they're nervous. So they're like, yeah, totally. I love you, man. And they're doing all this crazy, you know, like, so I'll take a lot of that stuff out and leave the good stuff in. But yeah, gun movement. Next time you watch something, you'll be like, oh my God, there he goes again.
Please ruin my life.
I swear to God. Or you'll say, this lady just cocked her shotgun, and then 5 seconds later, she did it again. And you're like, wait a second, she just did it. It's just one of those things, dude. So any gun movement is just like, you just hear. And you're like, it's so unrealistic in the real world, but when you don't
for some reason it works.
It works.
Because I've never noticed so far.
Get ready. It's called giving weight to well, it's what I call giving weight to a prop, right? Because that gun is the furthest thing from real on a set, right? So you want to give it that weight, that sound of what a gun, you know, could sound like. You know, if they're holding it and like moving it around, you know what I mean? Like, I just did a movie where the guy he shoots the guy, and then there's a close up, and he goes like this, and I was like, fuck, I gotta put gun movement in. And I always kind of hate doing it because I'm like, but without it, that whole moment is just, it just takes all the drama out. But when you put like a little more gun movement in, you're like, oh my God, he's gonna shoot him again. And it gives you the tension, you know? So anyway, yeah.
I bet, I mean, at this point, I bet, so two questions following up on that. How big is your sound library?
Okay.
and how long does it take just to finish a whole project?
My sound library is trimmed now. I trimmed it a little. It's 4 terabytes.
Oh,
and that's like,
that's epic.
Hits, table hits, arm touches, and like, I mean, I have so much.
Do you have like a system to find what you're looking for?
Yeah, there's a thing called Sound Miner. Think of it as like it's a very literal name for a plugin. So it's mining for sounds. So I would put in. Sometimes I'll put in FS, just FS, because there's the metadata attached, or there should be, to all the effects that you have. So you could look, if you're looking for feet on snow, you know, which is a really hard one to make sound real, right? Because it kind of almost, real feet on real snow almost sounds like someone's just like farting the whole time they're walking. It's like, you know, like you gotta like. So if I want feet in snow, I'll put it into Sound Miner. Sound Miner will literally go into my external drive, find all the snow footsteps, and then they all line up, and then I can just go through them like that and just look for the one I like. Or body hit, I'll go through those. Or cars are really hard, man. Like car interiors.
I bet.
So it's like, what kind of car is this? You'd be shocked. Every car, I have like 5 million 68 Mustangs.
Oh.
you know, but I'm like, these are driving like Toyotas, okay? Like this is like, I don't have any use for the 69 Mustang ever. I've never used it. So I want just a regular car. And it's like, I can't, you know, you can't get them. But yeah, so I do have quite a bit. And then I do my own, I have a microphone set up, a little Sennheiser. You'd be blown away if you knew how much Foley I did on the spot. I mean, I have a track dedicated to hands, you know, nice to meet you. And I do the release just because I want to get it. And then I just do it here. And that's what a lot of people do. A lot of designers, because I don't have time to go try and find it sometimes.
Go and look for the exact.
And so I will be like the Foley artist. And I have boxes. I have a cement box. I have a wood box. I have a linoleum box where I can sometimes just do feet, you know, or sometimes I'll just I've been doing MIDI Foley, and that's a whole other thing. Dude. We could spend a whole other podcast on that.
I definitely need to have you back.
Yeah. I'll talk about MIDI Foley and how the challenge of how many people I know in this business that have said to me, oh, dude, I got to get my MIDI Foley set up. And I actually did it. And it is so hard to get it going so that it sounds good. But once you figure it out, it actually sounds better.
Hope you guys enjoy part 1. Again, part 2 is going to be dropping next week. I don't want you to miss that. There's amazing tips and advices that are going to be on part 2. And it's going to be really, really epic. If you like part 1, don't miss part 2. If you're listening in Apple Podcasts, please leave me a review. It's really important, and can't wait to have you on part 2. Until then, guys, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. And if you're watching YouTube, thank you so much again. And remember to subscribe, hit the bell, you know the drill. And see you in the next one.